Welcome back to the Airbnb Superhost Secrets podcast, where we're diving deep into the art of becoming a top-rated host.
hmm
And today, a lot of listeners write in about holiday decorating. So we decided to do a deep dive into this very topic.
Yeah, it's a big one. The holidays are coming up, and a lot of hosts are wondering, is it worth the effort to decorate? Especially, if they're already booked solid.
Right, exactly. So let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
What's the argument for, decking the halls?
Well, I think for a lot of hosts, it's about creating a warm and inviting atmosphere. That special holiday feeling. A host I know in Maine decorates their cabin with moose figurines and pine cones, and it just adds a really nice touch,
Oh, that's cute.
you know?
And it's not specifically Christmassy either, so it
Yeah.
appeals to a wider range of guests. Right.
Exactly. It's more inclusive. Now, on the other hand, I've also heard from hosts who go all out with Christmas decorations, and their guests absolutely love it. They rave about it in the reviews.
Yeah, I can see that. But I'm guessing there's also a flip side to this, when maybe too much holiday cheer could backfire.
Right. You always have to be mindful of guest preferences. Some guests might not celebrate Christmas, or they might have different cultural traditions, or maybe they just prefer a more minimalist look. I once heard a story about a host who decorated for Halloween while their guests were out, thinking it would be a fun surprise.
Oh, no.
But it ended up backfiring. The guests felt like their privacy had been invaded.
Yeah. You know what you think is fun and festive? Someone else might find totally overwhelming. And we want everyone to feel welcome and comfortable, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just about personal preferences either. Some guests might have allergies to certain decorations or strong scents.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Oh.
There's so many things to consider. So how do we find that balance?
Well, I think a lot of hosts are opting for a more neutral approach these days. Winter-themed decorations instead of specifically Christmas decorations.
Yeah. Like what kinds of things?
Like snowflake motifs, pine cones, natural elements, like pussy willows, even just like a bowl of pomegranates. It's festive,
Okay.
but not tied to any particular holiday.
I like that. And it's still visually appealing.
Right, exactly. And sometimes less is more. A simple wreath on the door or a small Christmas tree in the corner, just a touch of holiday cheer without overwhelming the space.
Yeah. Keep it simple and easy to adjust. If a guest prefers a more minimalist look, you can always just take a few things down.
Exactly. Flexibility is key. But at the end of the day, even with the best intentions, misunderstandings can happen. So what's the best way to make sure everyone's on the same page?
I think I know where you're going with this. Communication, right?
Communication is key. You've got to be upfront with your guests about your holiday decor approach. Don't assume anything. I know a host who sends a quick message to guests before arrival. Something like, hey, we've added a few festive touches to the space, but let us know if you'd prefer a more minimalist look. And we're happy to adjust.
Oh, that's smart. Just opening that line of communication.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And you can also include a little note about your holiday decor in your listing description, just a sentence or two, so guests know what to expect.
Yeah, that's a good idea, setting expectations up front. And it probably saves you time, too.
Right? Absolutely. Fewer messages back and forth. So remember, it's all about being thoughtful, considerate, and communicative.
That's a great takeaway. Now, speaking of creating a welcoming experience, what about preparing our Airbnbs for winter weather?
Right. Especially for those of us in colder climates.
Exactly. A cozy winter getaway could turn into a nightmare if you're not prepared. So where do we start?
Well, first and foremost, heating. You want to make sure your guests are warm and comfortable.
Right, of course. No one wants to walk into a freezing house.
So before the cold season hits, make sure to have your heating system serviced. Check the furnace filter, test the thermostat.
Yeah, good point. It's easy to forget about those things.
And once you know the heating system is working, provide clear instructions for your guests. If there are any quirks or specific settings, make sure to point them out.
Right, like if the thermostat is a bit finicky, or there's a special way to set the timer.
Exactly. You want to set your guests up for success. Now let's talk about insulation. Windows and doors are often the biggest culprits for heat loss.
Ugh, yes. Those drafts can make a room so cold.
Weather stripping and caulk can make a big difference in sealing up those gaps. And don't forget about curtains.
Oh yeah, heavy curtains can really help. And they look cozy too.
And while we're on the topic of insulation, don't forget about the attic.
The attic.
Yeah, you might not think about it, but
Yeah.
if your attic isn't properly insulated, you're going to lose a lot of heat through the roof.
Makes sense. So attic insulation is important, especially if you live in a cold climate.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about snow and ice.
Okay. This is where things can get a little dangerous.
Right. You want to make sure your guests can safely access the property, make sure walkways and driveways are clear of snow and ice,
So the snow shovel is essential. And ice melt, too.
and maybe even a snowblower. If you get a lot of snow, make sure your guests know where to find those things too.
Right. It's not just about clearing the snow before they arrive, but giving them the tools to keep things clear throughout their stay.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Now, let's move on to a less glamorous topic, frozen pipes.
Oh, yeah. Every homeowner's nightmare.
Make sure pipes in exterior walls or crawl spaces are properly insulated. You can use pipe insulation sleeves or heat tape or spray foam insulation.
Okay, got it. And seal up any cracks or holes where cold air might be getting in.
Right. And even if you have good insulation, it's a good idea to keep the thermostat set to a minimum temperature, even when the property is vacant. Aim for at least 50 degrees Fahrenheit.
Good tip. Better to be safe than sorry. What about if we're going to be away for a while during the winter?
If you're going to be gone for an extended period, you might want to consider draining the water system altogether.
That sounds like a hassle, but I guess it's worth it to avoid a burst pipe, right?
No, what about power outages? Those can happen anytime, especially during winter storms.
Yeah, it can be pretty scary to suddenly be in the dark, especially in an unfamiliar place.
So you want to make sure your guests have flashlights, candles, a battery-powered radio,
And extra batteries, of course.
bottled water, and some non-perishable food,
Yep.
just in case.
Like a little emergency kit.
Exactly.
Oh, and a first aid kit, too. Just a basic one, in case of any minor injuries.
Absolutely. You know, thinking about winter preparedness reminds me of this one host I know. They actually provide snowshoes for their guests.
Snowshoes. That's a fun idea.
Yeah, especially if you're in an area that gets a lot of snow. It's like a unique little amenity.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
It's those extra touches that can really make a difference.
Right. It's all about going above and beyond. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some unique amenities that you can provide for your guests this winter?
Yeah. Get creative. Think outside the box. What can you do to really wow your guests?
Now, before we sign off, I want to touch on one more thing, setting the right vibe for the holidays.
The vibe? You mean like creating a festive atmosphere?
Yeah, exactly. It's about capturing that holiday spirit and making your guests feel really welcome and relaxed.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, music is a great way to set the mood. A nice holiday playlist, some classic carols, or even just some instrumental music that evokes a sense of warmth and nostalgia.
Yeah. You could even create different playlists for different times of day, like a cozy fireplace playlist or a festive dinner playlist.
And don't forget about scents. Certain aromas can really evoke those holiday feelings, like pine, cinnamon, peppermint.
Oh, yeah. But you have to be careful with scents. Some guests might be sensitive to strong smells.
Right. Always err on the side of caution with scents. Keep it subtle. And then there are those little touches that can make a big difference, like a festive welcome note, a sprig of holly on the pillows, a crackling fire in the fireplace.
I love those little touches.
And what about some festive treats? A plate of cookies, a bowl of candy canes, maybe even a bottle of sparkling cider.
Oh, that's a great idea. A little welcome gift.
At the end of the day, the holidays are all about creating memories. And as Airbnb hosts, we have the opportunity to help our guests create those special memories.
I agree. It's about creating an experience that they'll cherish long after they've checked out.
Exactly. So let's embrace the holiday spirit, spread some cheer, and make this holiday season one to remember.
Yes. Happy hosting, everyone. And to all our listeners, we wish you a joyous and festive holiday season. We'll see you in the new year.